when you're 17, 18 years old, and you're going through all that, you feel like you've earned it and you deserve it, and you don't realize how lucky you are to be where you are. And there's a lot of reflection that has occurred in the last almost 27 years after I've graduated from IIT Delhi. But one thing that I did realize very, very early on was how big of a part luck played in, or luck plays rather, in getting anyone to IIT, whether it's Delhi or any other place. Our wing WhatsApp group, or we call ourselves the B Easts, because when we were in second year, we used to live on the East Wing, on the B floor, so A, B, C, D, 4 floors, right? So we used to live on the East Wing on the B floor. We had like 6 rooms or something, and this was when it was 2 rooms, 2 people to a room. So we're about 10 odd people, and so we used to call ourselves the B East. So I was very lucky again, like, to have found a group of people who, it was a diverse group of friends, meaning for different departments and whatnot. And the thing is, like, they're your friends, right? So they can help you laugh about these things, but they can do it in a way where you don't feel too bad about yourself, right? Because some of them did really well in that exam, but it's always like, okay, we need to help you, and here's how we're going to help you, and here's what you need to do. So that support structure, the having friends around who cared about you and wanted to help you get through all that was very, very important.
Hi folks, welcome to this episode of Dil Se IIT Delhi podcast. Today we have with us Mr. Vivek Vaidya, who is a dual degree mathematics and computing alumni from the batch of 1996, and has an amazing portfolio of responsibilities that he's managing right now as a co-founder and CEO of Markov ML, co-founder of Capstable, co-founder and member board of directors of Habu, co-founder and general partner of Superset, co-founder and CTO at Catch, to name a few. Still, what does it mean to be an IITian and carrying that immense load of responsibilities?
Wow. I think being an IIT necessarily doesn't mean responsibility, but I'm very proud of the fact that I was able to go to IIT Delhi. It was lots of privilege that led to that. I think that in terms of responsibility, I don't know whether I would call it responsibility or not, but I think that everybody who is lucky enough to receive this kind of abundance at such an early age, whether it is at IIT or any other place, I think they have a responsibility to, in my view, give back and pay it forward. Now that can happen in multiple ways, but that's what I kind of mean by, or assume as my responsibility as someone who's been lucky enough to get or receive the abundance that I received early on in my life.
So, coming from a technical background and articulating those, like, whatever corporate learnings, or not corporate but rather learnings from the industry that you had articulated in the book with your co-founder. So I see a lot of reflection in your speech. is it like inherent in you from some over the course of this time, the experience, or something found here, or is it does it precede it?
I've not always been a person who reflects, right? When I think there are some people who do that who are able to do that at a very young age, and that's awesome, because it does require a certain amount of maturity to be able to look back and really objectively think about your life and what led you to the place you've arrived at and whatnot. One thing that really helps me personally is my wife. Actually, she keeps me grounded, and we talk about these things, and my co-founder and I also talk about these things a lot. The one of the things that changed for me was I came in with zero interest, or no, I shouldn't say zero interest, but an unknown amount of appreciation, interest, etc. in computer science or even math. And then when I exited, I was like, I know what I want to do, and by and large, I've done that for the last 20 years. I've built software, so yeah.
And I think your LinkedIn profile speaks a lot about it in terms of the accolades that you've collected, in terms of the industry standards getting acquired by Salesforce once, exited other startups, and then consistently being the CTO of different companies with high stakes, right? What sort of a mindset, other than obviously discovering your passion, what sort of mindset does IIT provide that you were able to leverage on?
Yeah, so, and this answer I think is different for different people, but everybody who comes to IIT, whether it's Delhi or anywhere else, right, they've throughout their life, from kindergarten all the way through 12th, they've pretty much been in the top 3 or 5 students in their class, right? And now you come to IIT, and everybody's like you, right? And so now you have to get really comfortable really quickly with being at the bottom of the class in some course or the other. There will be courses where you will be at the bottom of the class. Why? Because there are 15 other people who are just as smart as you or better, whom you're competing with, right? And so you just have to get comfortable with that. And I got there, I think, pretty quickly. And so that helped me a lot, actually. That experience and that realization meant that, or the learning for me, which I've kind of carried throughout my life, is that, look, there will always be situations where somebody is going to be better than you at X, Y, or Z, right? That doesn't mean that you're not good at a whole bunch of other things. So you should focus on your strengths and really work on them, as opposed to trying to figure out, well, but so-and-so is really good at that, so I need to be good at that as well, right? And so that lesson, I feel like I really learned and internalized that at IIT Delhi.
Yeah. So any part of your immensely successful journey of last 27 years, as I mentioned, what was the one critical point that you feel was taught to you by some failure?
I learned the value of persistence and learning to not take things too seriously.
Right.
So, the value of grit, persistence, not being dealing with that kind of a setback. Imagine you've been at the top 3 or 5 in your class or throughout your life in school, and here you are, the first real exam you take, you get a big fat 0, right? You need to deal with that, and so that was very early. I learned that lesson very. That was failure, right?
Yeah.
And but it taught me that look, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
You can get out of it
Yes.
if you put your mind to it.
Yes.
And so I did, and that was one of many examples of stuff where we've failed, and I'm still. There are lots of examples every day. There is some failure or the other,
Yes.
big or small.
What sort of support system what was the support system that you had at that time?
Yeah, it was mostly friends, right? It was friends, and I was very lucky again, like to have found a group of people who, it was a diverse group of friends, diverse meaning for different departments and whatnot. And the thing is, like, they're your friends, right? So they can help you laugh about these things, but they can do it in a way where you don't feel too bad about yourself.
Was it more from the hostel side of people that you were hanging out more with, or the department?
It was mostly on the hostel side. Deep friendships are more on the hostel side than on the department side. Sometimes you get lucky and you have a dear friend, a close friend who is in the hostel and in your department. But most of my really close friendships are all, in fact, my dorm. In fact, wingmates. Actually, not even hostel. Like they're my wingmates. So.
What hostel were you in?
I was in Jwala.
Jwala.
Yeah.
And any particular story you would want to share with us?
So we couldn't occupy the whole wing because we weren't that many people. So one of the rooms, there was an M.Tech student, and one of our friends, he was his roommate, and this friend, he never had toothpaste,
Okay.
so he would always steal the M.Tech guy's toothpaste. And that used to create some funny moments in the wing at 6:30 in the morning. So yeah, but lots of stories. Some of them are not suitable for publication, as you might imagine.
That's great. You were in the startup, which was in IIT Delhi, and which sort of you saw through the last years with them, right? How did the journey with entrepreneurship begin?
There wasn't a fixed moment.
Yeah.
For me, it was a continuum. So I left after I graduated. I went to University of Denver for grad school, and I finished my master's. The plan was to do a PhD, but I didn't. I left after my master's, and I joined a startup. Because after that experience with Parsec, I enjoyed the whole experience so much. The fact that you have so much freedom and you can do so many things. You're not just coding. Like one of the things I had to do very early on in my experience at Parsec is there was a telecommunication trade fair happening in Pragati Maidan, and so we showed up and we had a booth, and here I was. 19, 20 years old, and I was manning the booth, selling and pitching to whoever came to our booth and wanted to know what we were up to, and then spent the whole day there. It was the first time in my life I've worn leather shoes for the whole day. My feet were aching at the end of it. Right, and then the next day you're back to building software.
Right.
So that diversity of experience, the fact that you could do so many things, was very, very appealing to me. So I joined the startup. I was employee number 15, and I worked there for about 18 months or so. And then I was like, you know what, things will start going sideways a little bit, and the leadership made certain decisions that I didn't agree with, and there were a few of us who didn't agree with those decisions. So we all left over a certain period of time. I was the first one to leave. And then I said, you know what, I want to join a startup at an even earlier stage.
Right.
So I joined the startup called Wrapped as engineer number one.
Right.
And that's where I met Tom, my co-founder.
Yes.
And he was the co-founder and CEO of Wrapped. And we've been working together ever since. But Wrapped was a great experience. We went through we went through the dot-com boom and bust, and then we went through the financial crisis. So it was great. We went through a pivot. Business Insider called it one of the top 15 pivots in all time.
Right.
It was, I mean, in today's terms, the exit to Microsoft wasn't really amazing. It was great at the time, and it was whatever 6 months before the financial crisis hit. So very timely.
So, but just thinking about an entity being early stage versus an entity you are exiting from or it's being taken over by someone, what sort of difference in stakes are there at both ends?
So when you start, right, you don't have as much abundance in terms of resources as you do towards the end, of course, right? You have to make a lot of decisions really quickly. You have to be really comfortable with taking shots on goal. You have to celebrate that and embrace that and appreciate that, the fact that you're running experiments and you're going to be trying things very quickly. Whereas in the later stages, you're more certain. Like the product strategy is kind of given, and you're figuring out how you're going to grow more, right? So there's a lot more ambiguity in the early stage. There is less ambiguity in the later stages. You have a lot more freedom to experiment in the early stages. You don't have as much freedom to experiment in the later stages. A lot of what you end up doing is determined / influenced by customers. So there's been a lot of this shift that's happened, and now we're in this world where AI and machine learning, data science was always has been a thing for 10 odd years now across various industries. But what happened in November 2022 with ChatGPT is truly transformational, right? And I think it holds a lot of potential. It also opens up a lot of questions for us as a civilization, a society, and how we think about technology and whatnot. But the main thing, right, with Gen AI now is that in most industries and in most functions, the unit cost of production has gone down. Either you can keep your workforce constant, and therefore, because the unit cost of production has gone down, your workforce is constant, your overall output goes up, or you can choose to keep your output the same and reduce your workforce, right? So you might decide, you know what, I'm going to keep the same number of software engineers, and I'll get more features and more product shipped.
Yes.
And on the other side, I'm going to reduce the number of content marketers I have and produce the same amount of content, right? So now, with this realization, what are you going to do as a business, right? This is the thing that I think most executives need to start thinking about. Over the next 3 to 5 years, people are going to figure out, oh yeah, this makes sense, etc. I don't think we're there now, but we will get there. And so I'm very excited about that, actually, in terms of. I'm also excited about all of the conversation that's going to result in, although that's going to ensue, to the focusing on ethics and how do we use this technology in a responsible manner and all of that. And I think that will lead to some very good outcomes for us as a society as well.
Yeah. So how do you wrap around your head around the fact that as the time progresses, the technology is obviously we are influencing the technology in our own ways, while the technology is also influencing us. That entanglement which goes on, right? So where do you see it going as well in terms of, yes, you spoke about the ethics, but someone who's driving that change, um, how do you see, or how do you wrap your head around um, the uncertainty
Yeah.
that the future holds?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, actually. One of the things that I firmly believe in right now, right, is that building systems, applications, products that leverage Gen AI, you have to be extremely mindful of the human aspect, right? And so much so that you need to consciously think about what is the human feedback interface you're going to build in order to make sure that the AI doesn't go haywire and it's doing the right thing. Whether it's preventing hallucinations or making sure that there is minimal bias in the output, making sure that the technology is being used for ethical purposes to the extent possible, right? All of these are judgments that can only be made by humans, right? But humans are biased, right? So how are you going to make sure that you're going to build the system in a way that accounts for that, right? So I think that that is something that we actually think about a lot. There's a project we've started. It's called the Ethical Tech Project, and that focuses on a lot of these issues around ethical use of data, ethical ways in which AI is built that leverages that data. So it's a think and do tank that has assembled a group of experts from the academia and the industry, where we're putting out standards and reference implementation, reference architectures, etc., for all of these types of issues. Make sure that your data collection practices are transparent. Make sure that consumers and or your customers are aware of what data is being collected, how it's processed, and what controls they have to govern and influence the use or not of their data.
What is it that makes IIT Delhi a hub of budding entrepreneurs?
I think by the way, it wasn't like this 25 years ago, right? That this was a recent phenomenon. I think the fact that there have been so many successful startups that have been built by IIT alums, I think is a huge factor. Maybe there's something in the water over here. I don't know, right? But there is, like, IIT Delhi and maybe IIT Bombay are the two IITs that produce the most number of startups, right? And so this is what I guess people refer to when they say that there's a culture of entrepreneurship that is implicit.
What sort of interface do you think should be there for the students to make sense of their studies, as to make also sense for their further experience in the industry?
The simplest interface is the coursework that they do. I think that the way some subjects are taught can truly be transformed in a way that is more relevant and extremely engaging from an industry perspective. And the second, you actually learn about theoretical concepts via practical application, right? So I think that's the best way, or that's the best interface, as you were asking, that can be developed between industry and coursework.
Be it mentorship, be it industry, student connect, be it in terms of becoming a founder or contributing in certain sense. What sort of a vision do you have for both alumni and the institute, which would be beneficial for the students currently?
Yeah, no, great. That's a great question. I think that there are some, there are a lot of actually alums who are doing some amazing work in the industry in their field, right? So I think getting them engaged and having them come to speak to students in various forums, whether it's presentations, large presentations, or small fireside chats, or even going to the hostel and just sitting in the common room and shooting the breeze with the students.
Yes.
There are lots of ways in which you can make those connections between alumni and students.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, and it's not just about entrepreneurship or company building or anything like that, but being a student at IIT, Delhi or otherwise, is tough, right? And but a lot of every alum has in some way, shape, or form made the journey, right? And I'm not naive enough to believe that every alum is going to be comfortable talking about their journey and whatnot. And some may not have pleasant memories or whatever, but a lot of more often than not they do, and they're I think they'd be open and willing to talk about all of that in a way that helps students. So if you go to an alum and say, hey, if you do this, it's going to help students, 90% of the time they'll be more than willing to do so. So yeah, I think we can do a lot as part of the endowment fund, or just as in terms of alumni engagement to foster that. The location makes it a little challenging, right?
Sure.
Like, because not everybody is in Delhi and all of that, but with enough planning and notice, I think it's definitely possible.
Right. And we love to have you here on campus. We would consider visit more often.
Yeah.
Because I think that gives the students here also a lot of opportunity to actually gain that exposure.
Yeah.
Right. And any last sort of words for this podcast you would have for the students? That's your camera. Any dil se?
No. Look, there are lots of things that you can do on campus. You should try and enjoy them. There's sports, there's extracurricular activities, there's a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Building relationships with your hostel mates and whatnot. Don't give that short shrift, right? Yes, there is always this the rat race is always there, dasi lani hai, A- nahi aana chahiye, right? Those things are important. I'm not saying they're not important, but as you come out of college, the value of a well-rounded personality and a well-rounded, more holistic kind of profile, if you will, is way more than your 10-point GPA, right? And because over time, what's going to matter more in your professional lives is things like how well do you communicate, how well do you participate in discussions, how well are you able to put forward your point of view. These are all skills you learn, not in class, but in engaging with human beings, whether it's your hostel or elsewhere.
So last bit where we sort of give you two options, it's a rapid fire. So just let us know
Yeah.
your preferences. Yeah. Your hostel or your department?
Hostel, always.
IIT Delhi or University of Denver?
That's a tough one, but still IIT Delhi.
What's the prouder moment, getting through IIT or getting your first job?
Getting through IIT Delhi. Yeah.
KLS or mess food?
KLS.
First year or fourth year?
Ooh, that's a good one. First year.
Rendezvous or convocation?
Rendezvous, man. No brainer.
Student life or current life?
Yes.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Vivek.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I'm sure I really hope this conversation reaches a lot of people and they find inspiration in your story.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. This has been wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.